Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Interledger Community Call. Chris couldn't join today because there was a conflict with the board meeting. So we have a couple, quite a bit of updates today. Let's see if we have Adrian. Is Adrian, are you on the call? I don't see him. So next up, we'll begin with the Interledger updates. And over to you, Julia.
Thanks, Vanille. Hi, everyone. So I was asked to give an update on the grant programs that we have currently open. From an ILF standpoint, we focus on 3 grant areas really: financial services, education, and ambassador engagement. Grant streams of which is now open for each one, where we're seeking to collaborate with companies, innovators, and advocates with an interest in revolutionizing digital payments and creating solutions that will improve people's lives. So we have the Digital Financial Services Grant, which this 2024 cycle is our 3rd iteration of this grant, where we're inviting interested fintechs and innovative organizations seeking to eliminate financial roadblocks and explore interoperable payments to benefit underserved communities to apply. From its inception, the focus of this grant has always been on supporting the development and activation of financial services that will become a node in the Interledger network. Whilst this goal has not changed, what we have done is altered this grant program in a way to enable solutions that may not result in a node in the network, but will facilitate Interledger-enabled payments accessible. So for this grant cycle, we have 2 tracks open for consideration. There's the enabled track, which will allow existing digital financial service entities to implement Rafiki into their working financial infrastructure, resulting in a new node in the Interledger network. And we have the unlock track, which allows for expanding payment options in an existing web-based platform to use our open payment APIs. And this grant is open until Friday, August 30th. Then we have our ambassadors program, which most of you would be familiar with. I think of the 3, it's our longest standing program, where we collaborate with qualified individuals from researchers, developers, open source contributors, policy regulators, digital rights advocates who operate at an intersection of various fields with an interest in advancing digital financial inclusion. So what we're trying to do is to collaborate with individuals who will use their expertise, their skills, their values, and their networks by researching new pathways, advancing open standards, developing and implementing open source technologies, activating their own communities to promote accessibility, and to help us to expand our ecosystem and reduce existing disparities. Overall, the aim of the ambassador program is to increase awareness about what we do at Interledger Foundation, as well as to boost participation, encourage research, facilitate experimentation with our technology, and foster innovation. And persons who are selected under this grant scheme will receive funding to do their research, build, organize, or advocate. And this opportunity is open until the 31st of August. Our final program within the education sector is our Interledger Next Gen Higher Education Grant, which we recently launched in May. As many of you know, we have engagements with Bowie State University, University of Cape Town, and we did a small engagement with our university as well. And what this grant seeks to do is to build a cadre of future leaders in the realm of digital financial inclusion. So with this open call, what we're trying to do is to partner with more universities to achieve this goal. And selected university will receive funding to support projects up to 12 months. And this process is somewhat different from the other two, where we're accepting letters of intent, which would outline essentially what these universities seek to do, followed by further engagement in the application process. So I know within our community, we might not have a lot of educators. So we're asking you to share this opportunity with persons within your network so we can get more reach as well. This year, one of the things that we've done for all our grant programs is develop application guidelines, which has FAQs, resource list, and all information about the application process and reviewing criteria. So far, we have not received a lot of questions from persons, so we are going to assume that these guides have been very effective in providing adequate information. But of course, there are other ways that persons can connect with us. So we have our Slack, and we have different forms asking, persons if they want to meet with us to have questions, or if they just want us to, have a conversation about their concept or their ideas. So these guys are available on the community forum. It's in the application preamble and submittable. And of course, all the information is available on our website. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillette. Next, I'd like to invite Kiara.
Hi, guys. I just want to give a couple of updates on some events. As you know, the summit is coming up in October in Cape Town. So make sure you guys secure your tickets. I know that that link is in the agenda. Just to go over a little bit about what's happening. That Friday, we are having the day before, I think that's the 25th, we are having an open house, meaning you can just book any meeting room you want, go over your projects, like nothing official is starting until that Saturday. For those of you that are going to be at the ILP Hackathon the weekend before, I'm sure you guys know the details about that. It's not everyone is required to go, so you'll know if you're kind of involved in that. Next, we extended the call for speakers until August 6th. So please make sure you share that around with whoever is in your network. We're really looking to have a robust and dynamic group of speakers this year. And as soon as those are all chosen, we'll get more of the details on the events to you guys. Lastly, I want to let everybody know we haven't put it out on our socials yet, but we are going to have our second Interledger Salon, which is going to focus on the education grant, and our topic is Interledger on campus. So we're having a few of our education grantees that are going to be speaking, and that is going to be June 26th. So more details will be out on our socials and in our forum pretty soon. So definitely join us there. And it's a live event. It'll be on YouTube and LinkedIn. I think that's it. If anyone has any questions, let me know on the summit, or we can get you over to the right people.
Great. Thanks, Kiara. Next, we have Iona. Over to you, Iona.
Yes, thanks, Vinil. And it's indeed a long update of events, and I'm literally writing a piece that I will call it Events Marathon, a joke from marathon and all happening in May. We have several events that our team, especially the tech team, but not only, has been present to, a long list of events, starting with Düsseldorf Beyond Tolerant Conference and moving to Romania, Edges Heroes, and also Dev Talks in Bucharest, Romania. All of them were with presence from the technical team. Alex, our CTO, was present in 2 of them, and I was, honestly, I think I was the only one present to the 3 of them. They were mostly because we are part of the committees. They are there or had a talk or moderating one of the scenes there. So if you see us at events, do ping us and come say hi. We had Ayden, I hope I'm saying correct, and Laville to attending the forum in Geneva. It's a more official one. I'll let the notes speak the name. And also Vinil and Jmiti organizing a workshop or participating into a workshop. Would love to see a piece on how that went and how the audience took in. And we had Stephanie at the CPDCP conference, and Vinyl again at the Global Technology Retreat in San Francisco. We ended this with a June event, which was the CTJS conference in Greece, Athens. I was there for personal reasons, and I saw it happening and jumped in to help the team there with the participation. And we have a few coming up. I want to invite everyone to check the links though, and if you want more questions from any of them, as I mentioned, I'm writing an article, but do reach us out to ask about talks or even tickets. Sometimes we might have invitations, so do check them in the meeting notes too. This weekend, we celebrate the hackathon, and we organize and celebrate the hackathon in Cape Town. We have the team on hands there. I think in the call I see Tilly, Sabine, Max, that are literally on hands, all hands on deck this week, starting with the course with the university and ending during the weekend with a hackathon. Just as I know, this is a first hackathon, but I hope we're going to organize more. Hopefully the experience will help us gain a bit more momentum there. And I will be in Amsterdam for the C3 conference, which is followed by a sister conference, JS Nation, where our ambassador Santosh is having a talk about web monetization. It is a remote talk. If you want access to the recordings from JS Nation or C3, as part of the committee there, I can facilitate that for you. So do ping me. You find me at Joanna at Interledger. And during the last weekend of the month, we have Sabine and Alex and Jason participating to the Tiger Beetle conference in USA. The last link with Julier's participation at Tech Beach, I have to admit that makes me a bit jealous, but do check out the links. And again, if you have questions related to events, send me a note. And if you want to see us to an event, send us a note about the event, and maybe it fits our mission. Yeah, we will probably meet sooner at the event than later.
Thanks, Joanna. So next, I see Adrian on the call. Adrian, would you like to share from Fynbos?
Sure. Hey, Vinay, sorry for not responding to you on Slack. Yeah, so this week we've been prepping for the hackathon. The students are going to be using our South African wallet for the hackathon. So just running through a few things to make sure everything's ready. We've only recently deployed the latest version of Rafiki. So that's all up and running. I think there's one or two little gremlins that we've been trying to iron out. But that's live with real money. So the students will be using production wallets with actual money given to them by the facilitators to test against. Making good progress on discussions on facilitating the peering between our US partners and Chi Money. So the due diligence is underway there. I know Uchi's been really helpful there and shared a whole lot of documentation and so on with our partners, and we've been working through the funds flows and so on. So hoping we'll have some good news soon on interoperability between our US wallet and Chi Money users in Canada. And then a lot of what we're doing there, as I've mentioned before, is going to be a basis for establishing interoperability between our wallet in Europe, our wallet in the US, and our wallet in South Africa. So the beginnings of the network starting to really appear here. If you have a Fynbos wallet, you can go and test it out on web monetization as well. It's working pretty well with the extension. It's only works interoperably with other Fynbos wallets for now, because obviously we don't have any live peering relationships yet. And interledgerpay.com also works. So I did a payment today to to Don, where you can go in and put your own payment pointer and then put the payment pointer of who you want to send and how much, and it'll take you through the consent form and execute the payment. And that's all working pretty nicely as well. So yeah, some nice progress seeing all of these features to roll out in production and moving real money around. Next step is to get the interop between us and some of the other wallets in place.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. Sabine or Max, would you like to share from the UCT hackathon?
Who's gonna do it, Max? Do you want to I'll let you talk. I usually talk here, so you talk this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good. So I guess the structure of the hackathon is essentially we're working with Ayden and Takunda from the UCT. Ayden is a professor, and they do sort of like lectures the first half of the day, more about just general like financial topics, and then the second half we well, today specifically Takunda, he's the part of the innovation hub at the UCT, was walking students through like kind of a full stack app where you can send money using open payments. So yeah, we've just been and then yeah, also yeah, Sarah's here, and she gave a lecture about the whole, let's say, ecosystem to the students as well on Monday. And then yeah, essentially yeah, it's been good. There's like 35, right? There's about 35 students or so, and so once this week is done, they have some, you know, idea about what open payments is. They've had experience using it in like a app that they've been kind of like walking through the whole week. And on Friday is the official kickoff for the hackathon, and then we wrap up on Saturday. And it's pretty like loose form, I would say, but yeah, we'll see what the students make. But so far, it's going pretty well. I don't know if you want to add something else, Sabine, to that, but
No, that's good. Maybe that like we're learning. This is a learning experience. This is the first time we're going through like a boot camp and hackathon at the end. So we're taking a lot of feedback, and we'll make this better next year. And then also like for internal, I mean, or not internal, but you know, we have a lot of documentation, and we want to make Interledger more accessible to everyone. So this experience also helps us to work on our material that we already have and try to make onboarding new developers into the ecosystem easier.
yeah, and I think one thing to add is like there is sort of a mixed group, I would say, of students. So there's some from computer science, I guess, studies, and then some of them are more financial focused. But yeah, it's obviously, you know, a kind of a challenge to explain certain concepts to different groups. But yeah, I mean, and I guess for the hackathon it would be great if, like, I'm sure like a group that has both parties will end up doing quite well. So we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Max, and thanks, Sabine. And with that, we conclude the project, the project and program updates from across the board. Next up, we have a deep dive, a deeper look from Ayden. Ayden, over to you.
Thank you, Vanille. And you're going to be my timekeeper, okay? So if I go on too long, or if I take it too literally and go too deep into anything, just tell me. I won't be offended. So hi, everyone. Really great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share a little about what I've been up to over the past few months as an Interledger ambassador. I'm just going to try to get some slides up onto the screen. Hopefully you can see them. If not, they're not too critical, but I think you might be able to see the slides. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a public interest technologist who studies impact of technology globally on a range of topics from democracy and politics through to labor markets and the future of work. I tend to work within normative frameworks, and I share that I like to be really explicit about that because I'm not looking to tear down existing institutions. I want to acknowledge where they're broken and to build strategies that fix them. And so when I began to conceptualize my work as an Interledger ambassador, I knew pretty early on that I thought where I could be helpful to the Interledger community is as a bridge between you and policymakers, legislators, and regulators. And so my work has that political dimension to it. So just a little history lesson, won't go too deep into this. Vint Cerf once said that the internet is a mirror of the existing world. Totally agree. And if the physical world is in trouble, and I would argue we have some turmoil around us at the moment, then the internet world has a problem too. And so we really see two contradictory trends at the moment. The internet, as it has evolved over the past 30 or so years, is currently a global network that links thousands of privately owned networks around the world to enable data flows among anyone, anywhere, anytime. This one world, one internet concept is based on universal infrastructure where everyone is connected and dependent on everyone else. And at a technical level, this works really well. Reciprocal trust and mutual benefit were the guardrails for the development of the early internet. If it works for my neighbor, it works for me. If he or she fails, I will have a problem. And it was a win-win philosophy. That was the conceptual background for the emergence of the global information society and our current model of internet governance. And I think that there is not necessarily an acknowledgement or a recognition from policymakers that today's borderless and largely private sector-led cyberspace is working. I think it has become easier for lawmakers to identify where we have real market failures, and they are failures. But I think that this year and next could be a bit of a litmus test for whether the international community is able, regardless of all of our political, economic, and cultural differences, to find some common solutions for the further development of our digital environment, because lawmakers can see what definitely isn't working when it comes to mis and disinformation, protection of privacy, cybersecurity failures, and AI, as we see it now. But the internet is functioning. It has some weaknesses, but even in difficult times like the pandemic, it worked. It connected us with loved ones. It allowed us to work remotely, to go to school, to shop for billions of individuals around the world. That's because of the internet invariance. This is a term that the Internet Society invented, and essentially they argue that the internet has a series of fundamental properties at its core that have made it a vehicle for social empowerment and economic growth. And when I think about what I love about the Interledger protocol, it's really similar to this, right? It's based on these same principles. And even a decade ago, this argument, if it isn't broken, don't fix it, got broad support. We never interfered with the core of the internet. But in 2024, the majority of governments and stakeholders from civil society and the private sector will probably agree that there is something about the internet that needs to be fixed. There's a broad consensus that something, whatever that is, isn't working. And the bad news is that nobody knows how to do it or what to do because we can't even agree on what are the problems. But we do have an agreement that something isn't working. And so the key question now is really, how do we find the right balance? And that's where this political battle is starting. And I think we risk entering into a zero-sum game. We risk the internet being pulled into geostrategic conflicts. In this slide, you can see the tracks where I think we're going to see some proposals at the international level for new regulatory frameworks. Some are already in the works. There's been discussions over the past few years, of course, but there's more and more progress being made. And another sort of piece of important context in the moment, another important process that's underway is the Global Digital Compact, which forms a part of Summit of the Future that the UN Secretary General has convened for later this year. If you're not familiar with World Summit, these are high-level political events that the UN convenes maybe once every 8 to 10 years, generally to solve some of the most inextricably complicated events of our age. There are 50 components to the Summit of the Future, but the Global Digital Compact is one of them, and it seeks to develop an action-oriented vision and some guardrails for current and emerging technologies. And I think that this could potentially make a very constructive contribution to enhancing digital cooperation, deepening our understanding of the digital future, and updating existing action lines and mechanisms. So I would suggest that we pay a little more attention to what is coming here. I think it is quite positive, but there are a lot of different processes at the moment, and the Interledger Foundation does not have a policy team, and there are different, and financial services is a highly regulated field, and incumbent actors are very aware of these processes. So I think that we want to be proactive so that we don't let any opportunities pass us by at the moment, because there are a lot of opportunities. So I think I want to just like briefly talk about like why I think you should care and why it's incumbent on all of us to really pay attention to what's happening at the moment. So what do you know about all of this? What's policy advocacy? So my theory of change relies on policy advocacy, which is a little different from other forms of advocacy. I don't do issue advocacy, which is activist campaigning or publicity, works on some issues. I don't do case advocacy, again, works on some issues, but just trying to change one person or one community's problem, one problem at a time. Policy advocacy is instead using policy-based solutions to address problems in a manner that creates sustainable and enduring change. It is inherently very political. It's about using formal policy mechanisms like laws, regulations, or treaties to change the world. And I think given the very broad mission and mandate that the Interledger Foundation has around addressing digital financial inclusion, and so many of the really amazing and interesting projects that different members of the Interledger community are working on, I think this is maybe worth considering, because it addresses issues in the long term. It solves problems for large populations at once. It can shift resources to where they are most needed. It invites citizen involvement in problem solving. It can create enduring change. And this is not on the slide, but it's not incumbent on Interledger to pay for it all. It's also sort of externalizing the implementation of some solutions onto other actors as well. So when we think really pragmatically and realistically about how we can solve really challenging problems, getting funding from other places to do the implementation is, I think, something we want to think about. Here are some key actors. So I did a mapping of institutions that could create binding policy at the intersection of financial inclusion and technology. Some of these institutions are more relevant than others. Not all of them are going to be the right place to take discussions around addressing financial inclusion. And what we sort of settled on was to create a home within the United Nations Internet Governance Forum for us to be able to educate other stakeholders on how digital technologies can extend the reach of financial services to unbanked and underbanked populations. The IGF is a global multi-stakeholder platform that facilitates discussions on public policy issues related to the internet. It was established by the UN Secretary General back in 2006. It aims to bring people together from different stakeholder groups as equals in discussions on public policy issues that especially related to promoting social, economic, and human development related concerns and how to address the real challenges that the internet brings. And I think that there are 3 reasons why the IGF is very interesting for the Interledger community. The first is that we have an opportunity to promote the Interledger protocol as a standard or protocol for interoperability between different payment systems and different currencies, therefore enhancing financial inclusion. That is the mission of the foundation. So I think taking that message here makes a lot of sense. Secondly, influence policy. Now, IGF does not make binding policy, but it can make recommendations, and recommendations can eventually lead to binding policy. And so by participating in the IGF, I think that the Interledger community can influence global policies and domestic policies and regional policies and regulations that concern the internet more broadly, and secondarily, digital financial services. I think we can advocate there for open, inclusive, and interoperable financial ecosystems, and other payment networks are engaging there already. Visa is already there, MasterCard is already there by way of the MasterCard Foundation. So other large existing financial institutions see value in participating in this environment, not on the issues that may be of interest to us in the Interledger community, but financial institutions already see some value there. And perhaps the value could be as simple as to network and to collaborate. I think that the IGF provides an opportunity for us to be able to network with key stakeholders from various sectors, to foster collaboration, to potentially explore partnerships that could drive the adoption of ILP and other innovative financial technologies. So what I've been up to over the past few months has been carving out a little home within the IGF for us. And I spent the past few months working with you and colleagues to get this authorized. It's called the Dynamic Coalition on Digital Financial Inclusion. And it is essentially a working group that is chartered to collaborate on a specific issue. So it's non-hierarchical. It does have a chair, just to be clear, but that is more just to keep the lights running, if you will, and to make sure that we're meeting. The idea is that this is a space where we can collaborate to discuss digital financial inclusion themes, concerns, and solutions, that we can use it as a space to conduct independent research to share with external stakeholders, including policymakers, to support evidence-informed policymaking. We have an initial research question, which is on the screen. And at the moment, a lot of the work of the Dynamic Coalition is focused on addressing this, and this will culminate in the publication of a research report that we will publish in December of this year. And that is, how can the adoption of open and global interoperable payment networks overcome existing barriers and leverage opportunities to enhance financial inclusion across diverse stakeholder groups, and how will this shape the evolution of the internet and the digital economy by 2030? And in answering this question, we will meet virtually once a month. We'll also be working intersessionally with a mailing list and with some other asynchronous forms of communication to prepare this report, which will be more in the form of an extended policy primer rather than an academic looking paper. So we'll have policy recommendations that we will be hoping to encourage other actors to take forward and to implement. And I think it's also sort of important to note that we're very intentional about relating the work that you saw on the previous slide, the work of the Dynamic Coalition, to the goals that were established in the IGF's mandate, because we think that this maximizes the likelihood that our recommendations will go somewhere. Note again, Dynamic Coalition will raise awareness about existing and emerging issues, share best practices, be affordable, solution-oriented, diverse and engaging, transparent. We will be able to do all of that. And paragraph 72 of the Tunis Agenda, which was endorsed by the UN General Assembly, says that that is where the IGF should be having impact. So our objective here is to definitely try to achieve the broader goal of digital financial inclusion, but also to be able to position the Interledger protocol as a key responsible technology in the future of global digital finance. And I think that there is also something to the convening power of the UN, and something about the fact that we are going to be in the same rooms as other larger payment networks and financial institutions, that lends legitimacy on the work of Interledger just by being there. So I think it's important not to discount the value of that. I sort of alluded to this before, but I can't do the work alone. That's why we need a coalition. And what this graphic shows is that as the political weight of the coalition gets stronger, the likelihood of success goes up. It's just sort of realistic to acknowledge that if it is only myself that is saying that Interledger is amazing, it's probably not going to get too far, but we need a chorus of voices making similar arguments about how the adoption of the Interledger protocol can achieve digital financial inclusion. With a multitude of voices, we will likely be more successful. And a lot of my work at the moment is a bit of outreach, trying to get other stakeholders to join our coalition. We already have a few members of parliament from several African countries. And we're also, there's a long-term vision here too, which is that as the coalition grows and becomes engaged, it might become engaged in fora outside of the IGF as well. But for now, we're planting the seeds to conduct research, to share best practices, and to develop guidelines that promote digital financial inclusion globally. I have put it on the slide. I think that sometimes there can be misconceptions about the value of engaging in policy spaces. There can be like a perception that outcomes are predetermined, or that engaging is a waste of time. There's like sometimes elements of truth to that. Sometimes it is the case. But I think, at least with the IGF at the moment, I think that we actually do have a really unique opportunity to be able to engage, because we've also carved out the space ourselves intentionally. We have, Interledger has written the terms of reference for the Dynamic Coalition and for our working group. So I think, I think there's value in engaging, and we'll see where it goes. It's just don't be disheartened. Now, just to sort of like wrap up a bit here, would really skip over this slide actually. If you would like to be a part of the Dynamic Coalition, would love you to be a part of it. I'll put this link in the chat as well. You can subscribe to the mailing list, which is a pretty no further level of commitment required necessarily. A first step can be just to subscribe to the mailing list to get updates as to what the Dynamic Coalition is working on. We will be having monthly calls for 90 minutes. We will also be looking for guest speakers to present about your work, especially looking for guest speakers who are building on Interledger already and have prototypes or something that shows the technology in the wild, if you will. If I look at the current membership of the Dynamic Coalition, we do have parliamentarians, we have policymakers, we have and not a particularly technical audience at the moment. And so showing the Interledger white paper, for example, isn't always clear as to what it is. So really looking for some more visual prototypes to be able to show that this is not just a theoretical protocol, but this is something actually being deployed. So if you would like to present your work, please reach out. My email will be on the next slide, and would love to have you a part of it. So you can join the mailing list, you can join monthly calls. You can also participate asynchronously, whether it is reviewing the drafts of our extended policy primer, for example, to make sure it is accurate. Would definitely love any of your feedback in any form that may take. Live, asynchronously, mailing list, whatever is easiest for you. That is my email address, which I'll also put in the chat as well. I'll end there, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And thank you so much for for your time today.
Thanks, Ayden. Any questions for Ayden?
Ayden, I was wondering if this slide deck is available to view afterwards.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share them. I don't know where I'll upload them, but absolutely.
Well, I don't know who
More than
else,
happy to.
but yeah, if you want to email it to me, or I can email you for it, I think that's super helpful for all the work that we're doing. And then also, if you could add your to sign up for the newsletter link in the chat, that would be great.
I'll do that now. Thanks, Kiara.
Jeremiah.
I'm curious, since Visa and MasterCard are already in these forums. By the way, the presentation was great, and I'm really excited that you are working on policy in these spaces. I'm really curious about what how the incumbents payment networks are currently engaging with these folks, what we can possibly learn from them. My feeling is always, they're going to be very protective of the revenue and the industry that they have built. So I'm not sure how welcoming they would be to interoperate. And I'm curious, what sort of influence and that they have with this group already.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to answer, because this is a recorded call, I want to be a little careful of how I respond to this. But what I will say is that I will say that the issues that they're working on are not digital financial inclusion. I'll say that there are other issues that are very important to them. For example, I've heard they really position a lot of their work around upholding human rights, and at least to one of these payment networks, the most important human right is the right to own property. Therefore, they are very big on protecting their intellectual property, and a lot of their work is focused on protecting the use of their names and logos. And so I would say that these are very large payment networks with a lot of stuff, and that the issue that even we did actually invite both of these payment networks to join our dynamic coalition, and internally they even have difficulties finding the right person who would be working on these issues, because in some cases their policy teams have over like 1,000, 2,000 people working globally on different matters. And so even their own institutional knowledge about who would be the right person can take like a little bit of work. So I would say that at the moment, their engagement within the IGF is on really different issues. And I would say it's primarily always framed around human rights and their commitment to upholding human rights. But generally, the focus is on protecting intellectual property, around some digital economy work, and generally around ensuring that there are no unjust restrictions placed on credit cards. And that is always like a really big part of it, this idea that there should not be caps on fees charged by payment networks, for example, wanting different stakeholders to acknowledge different risks involved with foreign currency holdings and exchange. So I would say that our little niche and what we have to offer that no one else is really talking about is digital financial inclusion versus core business activities.
Any other final questions to Ayden?
I've got a question, probably more of a personal question, Ayden, but how do you not get overwhelmed by all of this? Like this, like it feels like you just go out infinitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's like really easy to be pulled this way, that way, or the other. And so you have to really sort of narrow what you work on and the forums that you engage in as one person when you don't have sort of like a supporting team to be able to do it. So I'd say that, just to be like totally transparent, there are like a lot of like missed opportunities at the moment. A lot of, with more people working on these issues, you could have more impact in more spaces, but you just have to be a bit realistic about what you can reasonably achieve. And then I also think, but I want to be like really careful about saying like missed opportunities. I don't mean it for Interledger, because by missed opportunities, I think that if I think about the whole community as like a bit of a startup, everyone's like in the startup phase. There's only so much you need to do at this point in time, versus actually building out technology. I think that there's like a small amount that needs to happen at the moment, and that's adequate. But just starting to really set boundaries is, I think, in general, a good idea. Just what can I realistically do? Not trying to like overpromise or overcommit, but just saying that with the amount of time that I have to give, this is what I can do, and this is like a bit of prioritization. And this is what I think, given the time that we have, this is what we can have the most relevant impact for our community. Thanks for the question.
Any? Yeah, Jeremiah.
One more. Do you have some examples of these sort of dynamic coalitions having some impact on other areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really obvious when you look at areas like access and connectivity to the internet itself and to the development, for example, of internet exchange points. And so there's a dynamic coalition that has been focused on the installation of internet exchange points in Latin America and Africa. Before its formation, it's been around like 11 years now. There were basically like 3 internet exchange points. And now like almost all of the growth and the funding especially, and that is the key element, is someone had to pay for the development of this and the construction of this infrastructure, has been because of the work of that dynamic coalition. There's a really interesting paper that was published by Emily Taylor at Chatham House, maybe last month or maybe in April, on the impact of the Internet Governance Forum. I'll put that into the chat. I think that is really interesting to look at the areas where actual tangible impact has occurred. But I would say that where the impact really comes from is in just channeling financial resources to problems. The impact is less in agreeing on and solving problems, and more in accepting there is a problem here, and why don't we throw some money at it so someone else can try to fix it now. And I think like that's honestly like helpful for many issues, because oftentimes we don't necessarily want governments to be too involved in trying to solve problems. Like, it's great, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it is having a additional source of funding that is available to be able to encourage innovation or to support innovation that's really useful. And I'm really big on promoting this at the moment because, and I've said this to some Interledger colleagues already, I think you don't want to be in a situation where the Interledger Foundation itself is really the only grantor of projects in the Interledger ecosystem. That's really amazing at the moment, but not necessarily sustainable. And I think being able to diversify who is able to support these projects is important. And so I think that one of the opportunities here is being able to really convince policymakers and lawmakers that there is a real issue here, that there is a potential for the Interledger protocol or other interoperable payment protocols to be a solution to real public policy issues. And then maybe we'll at least be able to direct some resourcing for pilot projects or other implementations or recommendations.
Great. Thanks so much, Ayden. So there are details in the chat. We'll also share those things with the meeting notes. This is also being recorded soon. This will be on our YouTube channels and also as a podcast. So we'll be sharing that soon. One last thing before we conclude the community call. Now we also have a permanent feedback link. So if you have ideas, suggestions, anything for the community call, or if you would like to present for the future deeper dives, please feel free to take a couple of minutes to fill in the form.
Vanilla, it seems like you need permission to fill out that.
I'll update the permissions right after the call. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
See you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.